Can we'll open the scriptures here in Hebrews chapter 11. Did Ed just say coffee? I thought Ed was offering to get everyone coffee. um, I wrote this talk with no consultation with Bobby, and listening to Bobby's talk, I thought there was going to be some overlap, but there wasn't. But I think it should be complementary, which it's perfect when things work out like that. Um, Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1. Now, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. For by it the elders obtained a good testimony. By faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God, so that the things which are seen were not made of things which are visible. So, I want to talk about faith. Obviously, opening with Hebrews chapter 11. How could it be anything else? But we have faith in God. That is our belief, our trust, our what holds us together, what brings us to walk with Him. And like it says, that's the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. That our faith is the trust that God is going to be there for us, even though we can't see Him, feel Him, touch Him. We don't have a something tangible to tie us to God, we we know gravity exists because we can feel it every day. We don't float off into space, but um, our belief in God requires something of us, which is our faith. Let's have a look here. Abraham. He was he is a good example of faith. In Hebrews chapter 11, verse 8. By faith, Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to the place which he would receive as an inheritance, and he went out, not knowing where he was going. By faith, he dwelt in the land of promise, as in a foreign country, dwelling in tents with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. So he was told to go out. He didn't know where he was going. He didn't know how to get there, but he just followed the word of God. And it was his faith that led him to get up in the morning and to pack his stuff up and move and just start heading out and following the word of God. Just the same way that we get up in the morning and we put our boots on and we go to work, or get out, feed the chickens, go to get some breakfast at OPH and preach the word there. It's that faith, knowing that if we get up and give the day to the Lord, that He is going to bless us, even though we don't get something immediately in return. We know, because we have had that experience, that God is going to bless us because we're trying to do what He has told us. We'll go to Genesis chapter 17. And that wasn't the only time Abraham was tested. Okay. Genesis chapter 17, starting verse 16. And I will bless her and will also give you a son by her, Then I'll bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations, kings of peoples shall be from her. Then Abraham fell on his face and laughed and said in his heart, Shall a child be born to a man who is 100 years old? And shall Sarah, who is 90 years old, bear a child? And Abraham said to God, Oh, that Ishmael might live before you. And then God said, No, Sarah your wife shall bear you a son, and you shall call his name Isaac, and I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his descendants after him. So here is when God had told Abraham of his son to be born Isaac. So if we read back, Sarah couldn't conceive. That's why he had Ishmael with Hagar, but that wasn't part of the Lord's plan. The Lord's plan was for Isaac to be born to Sarah, and obviously Abraham um, kind of laughed at the thought of having a child so late in his late, early, kind of depends on how you look at it, but God told him that that was to be, and that was going to be his plan. So if we carry on down to Genesis 22, so now you have Abraham with his promised son Isaac that was born to Sarah. In chapter 22, verse 1, Now it came to pass after these things that God tested Abraham, said to him, Abraham, and he said, Here I am. Then he said, Take now your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I shall tell you. So Abraham arose early in the morning and saddled his donkey and took two of his young men with him and Isaac his son, and he split the wood for the burnt offering and arose and went to the place of which God had told him. So here we have God woke up one morning and just told Abraham, okay, go and sacrifice your only son, which was a blessing to you. And without hesitation, Abraham said, okay. And he packed up and started making the arrangements as God had instructed him. Now, I can't imagine having that discussion. Well, not even, it wasn't really a discussion, getting that instruction from God, just saying, hey, go sacrifice your only child, and not having some kind of conflict or internal struggle with whether or not I should obey that. But Abraham's faith was so great that he did it without question, and he knew that as long as he was following the word of the Lord, that everything would work out better in the end from the beginning. And then if we go down to skip down to verse 6. So Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it on Isaac his son. Uh, 22, what's the verse? Okay. And Isaac spoke to Abraham his father and said, My father. And he said, Here I am, my son. And he said, Look, the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? And Abraham said, My son, God will provide for himself the lamb for a burnt offering. And so the two of them went together. So he was telling he knew that God had a solution for him. So when Isaac asked him, where is it? Where's the burnt offering? And Abraham told him that God will provide it. And we know later on down the verse, right at the last minute, that God stopped Abraham from sacrificing Isaac, and he did provide a lamb to sacrifice in Isaac's place. And we can just take this example that the Lord will provide for us, and that we'll be blessed if we follow His commandment. And we should know that we should be building ourselves up and seeking the Lord, so that we do have the faith to be able to take that instruction without any uncertainty or wavering, knowing that the Lord is going to take care of us. How do we build up our faith? How do we increase? We'll go to James chapter 1. Starting verse 2. My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. But let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete and lack nothing. So when we go through trials, it's to teach us and to build us up, and to, I know a lot of us, like myself included, when we come across issues in our lives, that we try to fix them on our own, and sometimes seeking the Lord isn't the first thing we think about, but oftentimes it might be not be the first solution, but it's definitely the last solution. That putting it to the Lord and remembering that the Lord's promises to take care of us and provide for us, that we don't have to do it on our own, and that we can seek the Lord, and we should seek the Lord to get through these trials and tribulations, no matter how great or how small. But it's the act of going through them is what teaches us and builds us up and builds our faith. Like if we sailed through life with no problems and no trials, and got to the end, what would we have learned? And that's nothing. That it's not meant to be an easy ride, but the Lord has promised, no matter how difficult, we will get there in the end. Kind of like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, when they were thrown into the fiery furnace, they refused to bow to the king and refused, and they had the faith to know that they would be protected in the fires and they would be delivered, and they ended up uh, staying strong to the Lord, and they came through it and were an example to him. In Daniel 3:17, you don't have to turn there. Our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us, but even if He does not, we will not bow. Having that faith, that we need to have our faith and our will stronger than the greater of the world. It's kind of like, paddling out to catch a wave. You got to go through the work and the effort to paddle out, and wade in the cold water, and then you get the thrill of catching that wave back in. And you wouldn't enjoy it as much if it was just catching wave after wave and you didn't have to work for it. And imagine how many people wouldn't go skiing if you had to hike up the mountain first to then be able to ski down it. And like we have to deal with up here in the Pacific Northwest, we have to endure the cold, dark, rainy winters to get through to summer, that we enjoy it so much more. Having gone through winter, that the summer is like just amazing. Like we get a couple months of just beautiful temperature, beautiful sunny days, and it's the trials that we go through make the blessings even sweeter. Matthew chapter 17. Matthew 17, verse 20. Jesus said to them, "Because of your unbelief, for assuredly I say to you, if you have faith as a mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, 'Move from here and there and to there,' and it will move, and nothing will be impossible for you. However, this kind does not go out except by prayer and fasting." And it doesn't require a lot of faith, but it does require perfect faith to know that, and not only just know, like we can tell ourselves every day, "Oh yeah, we'll pray for this," but just to know in our hearts that Jesus and God will take care of us and provide for these needs that we put to Him. And it is something that we have to build ourselves up daily. We have the example in Mark chapter 5, verse 25. We'll just move over there. "And now a certain woman had a flow of blood for 12 years, had suffered many things from many physicians. She had spent all that she had, and there was no better, but rather grew worse. When she heard about Jesus, she came behind him in the crowd and touched his garment, for she said, 'If only I may touch his clothes, I shall be made well.' And immediately the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed from the affliction." So here is a woman that has had a health problem for years, and no doctors, no one had any answers. But she knew she didn't even need Jesus to command it, or she didn't need some miraculous event to heal. She knew that all I have to do is just be close to him, and that'll be good enough to heal. Like, her faith was so great that just to get a hand on the hem of his garment would have been sufficient for a healing. Um, and in verse 30, "And Jesus, immediately knowing in himself that power had gone out of him, turned around in the crowd and said, 'Who touched my clothes?' But his disciples said to him, 'You see the multitude thronging you, and you say, Who touched me?' And he looked around to see who had done this thing. But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what had happened to her, came down and fell before him and told him the whole truth. And he said to her, 'Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your affliction.' So at the same time, she knew she had been healed. Jesus also knew that she had been healed. But it was just that one act of pure belief and knowing that, that's all she needed to do to be healing. That's the kind of faith that we need to build ourselves up to, just knowing that, like, just being close to Jesus is what we need to do to be healed. And then we don't have to turn to the other example I have here is in Matthew chapter 8, verse 5. The Roman centurion came to get his servant healed, and Jesus said, "Oh, let's go and I'll pray with him." And he said, "No, like, you don't even need to come and look at him, just say it and I know it'll be so." And like, so this is a Roman, so not even a member of the congregation, but he recognized Jesus' power and had faith enough to know that Jesus just had to command it and his servant would be healed without even having to see him. And that's what we need to do. So we know that these trials that we go through build our faith. We can build our faith even more so by, like it says, praying and fasting and building ourselves up. And that's like putting the fuel, putting energy, storing it away to help us get through these trials, that knowing no matter how dark it gets or how bad the situation, that we just have to believe and have the faith that Jesus is going to get us through, and we build on all of this because we follow the Bible and we see, speaking in tongues and being baptized, and we've had that same experience for ourselves, and we see that exactly what it says in the Bible. That's what we have gone through, so we can hold on to that, knowing that we are on the right path. We are doing what Jesus wants us to do, and that if we just keep looking to Him, we'll be there to meet Him when the Lord's return. So I'd like to leave those thoughts there.